Joyful Thursday learners, for third quarter, we only have two topics in art. And we will discuss the first topic today, which is Neoclassicism. So get your pen and notebook so you can take note the important terms. So you listen carefully. So, Neoclassicism and Romanticism, yun yung dalawang topic natin for third quarter. So, Neoclassicism and Romanticism were the movements after the Rococo period that flourished across Western Europe and the United States, which spanned approximately in the late 1700s. Just to give you a hint, yung Rococo was late Baroque that is often described as the final expression of the Baroque movement. And the word neoclassic came from the Greek word neo, meaning new, and Latin word naman na classicus, meaning of the highest rank. So this is similar to the meaning to the English phrase first class. Sa neoclassical movement, it is coincided with the 18th century Age of Reason o tinatawag din na Age of Enlightenment. The art style in this period was brought about by the renewed interest in Greek and Roman classics, meaning yung neoclassicism, it was a revival of the ancient Greek and Roman style and spirit of classical antiquity kung saan ini-emphasize niya yung formal composition based sa symmetry, simplicity, and order. And some of the characteristic of neoclassicism, some are from your books and some from other resources. So, the characteristics of neoclassicism, nandyan yung clear form, sober colors, shallow space, vigorous horizontals and verticals, portrayal of Roman history. Later on, makikita nyo yung mga yan kasi some artists of neoclassic period, they portray events or significant events during Roman period or during Roman history. Another characteristic is formal composition, local color, overall lighting, and classic geostructure. So, baka kasi mapagkaiba nyo or mapagkaiba. Maihalin tulad nyo yung neoclassicism na word sa classicism na word. Yung neoclassicism kasi parang somehow iba siya sa classicism. Pag sinabi nating neoclassicism, this is the renewed interest in classical ideals and forms na naka-influence sa European and American society through idea, sa politics and fine arts during the 18th and 19th century. So this one, it refers to the art forms created after but inspired by the ancient times. And yung period na to, itong neoclassic period, it was derived from the classicism movement. So yung neoclassicism from classicism siya. So, yung classicism naman on the other hand, this is the period in which Greek and Roman principle and style were reflected in society. So, be careful not to interchange these two terms. Again, pag sinabi natin classicism, it refers to the art forms that produced in antiquity or inspired by it afterward. While the neoclassicism, it refers to the art forms inspired by ancient times but created later on. So, timing is the most important difference between classicism and neoclassicism. And these both art movements have their origins in Greek and Roman antiquity. But classicism, it occurred at the height of this period and briefly experienced a revival during the European Renaissance or rebirth. Whereas yung neoclassicism, it emerged later but was directly inspired by the more traditional classic style and made numerous attempts to imitate it. So, yung artistic interpretation of classical Greek and Roman history were restored to realistic portrayals. as a result of neoclassical artists' adoption of the values of order and moderation. Kaya nga makikita nyo, yung mga artists, it's like they turn significant event during Greek and Roman history into painting or into art. Yung mga neoclassical painters, they place a high value or great importance pagdating sa settings, sa costumes, and dun sa mga details ng classical subject matter. They are striving for maximum historical accuracy while avoiding the addition of distracting details. So, dito parang pinoportray nila na ma-depict talaga nila yung mismong accurate na significant event na yon during Greco-Roman history. So, there are a number of neoclassical artists from Europe and United States, but we will only tackle three of them. Nandyan si J.L. David or si Jacques-Louis David, we have Ingress, and we also have Goya or Francisco Goya. Let's first tackle and discuss Jacques-Louis David. I don't know kung meron pa bang ibang pronunciation yung kanyang name, but I searched it on Google and it says there na it pronounces Jacques-Louis David. So, Jacques-Louis David was an influential French artist and considered to be a preeminent painter of the era neoclassical movement, meaning during late 18th century neoclassical movement, Jacques Louis David is one of the proponent or preeminent painter during this period. His subjects of painting were more on history, and its story value was emphasized to inspire, love, and patriotic virtues. Later on, kung mapapansin ninyo, sa mga paintings ni J.L. David, it seems like figures acting on stage and making grand theatrical gestures. Example is yung nasa inyong screen, yung Out of the Horati. Ito ay large painting na nagdidepict ng scene from a Roman legend about the dispute between Rome and Alba Longa. Yung sa left side ninyo, yung tatlo, they are the three brothers, all of whom appear willing. They're willing to sacrifice their lives for the good of Rome. They are shown na they are saluting their father who hold their sword or yung kanilang espada for them. Yung mga women naman at the side back, look at their emotion, parang lumong-lumo sila, no? They know kasi that they will also bear the consequences dun sa battle na mangyayari because the two families are united by marriage. Di ko, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, some of this, yung mga babae dito are wives of these three brothers, if I'm not mistaken. So, yan yung Oath of Horati. Another work or painting of J.L. David was the Death of Socrates. So this painting was portrayed the classical theme of the trial and execution of Socrates with an underlying message of resistance against France's unfair ruling authority during those times. In this case, kasi the story of the execution of Socrates as told by Plato in his Phaedo, in this story, Socrates has been convicted of corrupting the youth of Athens and introducing strange gods, and has been sentenced to die by drinking poison hemlock. Socrates uses his death as a final lesson for his pupils rather than fleeing or tumakas when the opportunity arises. And he faced it calmly. Kitang-kita naman sa painting. And in this painting, Socrates extolled or he shown stoicism and self-sacrifice. So, it's like Socrates, nandun na nga siya sa kanyang death. Pero, andyan siya, nagle-lecture pa rin siya sa kanyang mga pupils. So, yun yung pinortray ni J.L. David, the death of Socrates in 1787. Another work of J.L. David is the Death of Marat. During French Revolution, David he served as an artistic director and he painted the Death of Marat. This masterpiece of David shows the portrayal of a revolutionary martyr. This is a painting of the murdered French revolutionary leader na si Jean Paul Marat. So he painted this one in 1793. And last example of J.L. David painting was the Coronation of Napoleon. Remember that Jacques Louis David, he also became the court painter of Napoleon Bonaparte. So, nung nangyari yon, nagpaint pa siya ng mga series of portrait of the newly installed emperor. He was commissioned dun sa kanyang masterpiece na The Coronation of Napoleon, yung nakikita niyo sa inyong screen, noong 1807. Isa ito sa kanyang grand masterpiece kung saan pinapakita niya na ika-crown na yung emperor himself with Empress Josephine na nakaluhod sa harap niya or si Empress Josephine she is kneeling in front of him and yung mga pope nakaupo naman sila behind him with several eminent person sa background. So yan yung work ni Jacques Louis David. Let's have a review. So Jacques Louis David was a French artist, proponent of the late 18th century neoclassical movement. He became a court painter of Napoleon Bonaparte wherein naging commission niya yung Coronation of Napoleon na naging isa sa kanyang grand masterpiece in 1807. And yung autophagy portraying a Roman legend, the death of Socrates and the death of Marat. And si J.L. David, in his time, he is regarded as the leading painter in France. And or probably all Western Europe pa daw. And he was the strongest influence in French art. Pagdating sa French art, malakas yung kanyang influensya. Lalo na nung early 19th century. And imagine nyo, he managed to replace the ornate Rococo style, yung late Baroque style or late Baroque movement. Nagawa niyang palitan yon with the style of classical simplicity. Which is yun na yung tinatawag nating Neoclassicism art. Now let's proceed to the second artist. During Neoclassic period, we have John August Dominic Ingress. So he was a pupil of Jacques Louis David. He was a classicist with a romantic style and he was influenced by Italian Renaissance painters like sila Raphael, Nicolas Poussin, Botticelli, and yung kanyang mentor na si Jacques Louis David. Did you know that Ingress considered himself as a painter of history? Pero hindi naman siya nakilala in that aspect. Because nakilala siya dahil sa kanyang mga portrait, dun siya nakilala, hindi dun sa paggawa ng mga history painting. So, he considered then na ang drawing daw ay superior to painting at gumawa siya ng several portraits in this medium. And he was dedicated to idealizing rather than replicating nature. Yung mga painting ni Ingress, usually mga nudes, mga portraits, and mythological themes. He was regarded pa na one of the great exemplars of academic art and one of the finest old master of his era. And one of his portraits was the Countess of Hausenville. This is an 1845 oil canvas painting that became identified with the academic tradition of French Neoclassicism. So, yan yung isa sa mga famous work ni Ingress, yung The Countess of Hausenville. So, yan lang kasi yung nakalagay sa inyong book na sample artwork ni Ingress. Pero marami pang portrait na ginawa si Ingress. Isa na doon yung portrait of Napoleon on the imperial throne. Yun parang dinidepict nun si Napoleon na with his coronation costume na nakaupo sa kanyang golden encrusted throne, wherein yung hand niya, it is a naka-rest yung kanyang hand, holding yung kanyang ivory balls. Yun yung painting that was believed na naging commission ni Napoleon as King of Italy. So, yon yung kay Ingress. And lastly, na itatakal natin na artist from Neoclassic period was Francisco Goya. So, this is the last artist that we will discuss under Neoclassicism. So, actually, he became one of the pioneering painters of the Romantic period. So, kasali rin siya sa Romantic period. Parang na-influence lang siya sa Neoclassicism tapos nag-develop siya ng sarili niyang technique by studying yung mga work ni Velázquez. Si Francisco Goya, he was a Spanish painter naman who was considered as the last of the old masters and the first of the moderns. Kasi parang last na siya sa Neoclassicism, pero una siya when it comes sa Romanticism. He painted cartoons for the royal tapestry or yung kanilang mga fabrics from 1775 to 1792 in Madrid. And his first genre painting or scenes, he depict everyday life. And yung kanyang mga, some of his work were the 3rd of May na ginawa niya yung nung 1808 and yung Maha Vestida. Alam ko yung Maha Vestida na yan, meron pang kasama yan, yung Mahanud. Yung Maha Vestida na yan, yan yung in English, Maha cloth, literal na nakadamit. And yung the 3rd of May na yan, yan yung masterpiece ni Goya that sought to commemorate yung Spanish resistance to Napoleon's armies during the occupations of 1808 in the Peninsular War. Yan yung parang brief uh, history or brief meaning ng the 3rd of May ni Francisco Goya. So that's it for our topic for today. I hope you learned something and nakapag-take down notes kayo ng mga important terms na magagamit ninyo for your quiz. So kindly check the announcement tab. Nandito rin sa ating lesson package yung inyong note for quiz 3-1 next meeting. That is next Thursday. So that's it. Have a nice day ahead, grade 9.